My aunt didn't even lower her voice when she said it. The kitchen was still warm from the oven, smelling faintly of rosemary chicken and the citrus cleaner she used too generously. The late afternoon light slanted through the blinds, striping the counters in pale gold. And she looked at me with that practiced softness, like disappointment was something she handed out with the same ease as napkins. "I know you paid off the $680,000 mortgage," she whispered, "but we're gifting the house to your uncle." For a moment, all I heard was the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the muffled laughter from the living room. She didn't blink. She didn't fidget. She had rehearsed this. And she expected me to swallow it the way I've swallowed everything else in this family. If this resonates with you, share your thoughts. It means more than you know. My name is Elena Ward. I'm 32 years old, and the day my aunt said those words, something inside me shifted, softly but enough to tilt the whole landscape of my life. I had spent years balancing 2 jobs, skipping vacations, repairing that creaking roof myself when the contractor fees were too high. I remembered the grit under my nails as I patched shingles while the porch light flickered in the early winter wind. I didn't do any of it to be thanked. But I didn't expect to be erased. My uncle, the uncle they were gifting it to, stood just behind her. He wasn't cruel. Just careless with other people's effort. He had this habit of tapping his ring against any surface near him. A nervous rhythm. He was doing it now against the table edge. I could tell he didn't know the full script of what she was telling me. He looked almost apologetic. Almost. The rest of the family moved around us like we were scenery, not the moment splitting everything open. My cousin Mia walked through holding a stack of plates, humming some pop song under her breath. My mother, who always smelled faintly of lavender lotion and exhaustion, hovered near the doorway, her eyes flicking between us as if she wanted to intervene but didn't know which version of history she was expected to support today. A memory rolled through me, quiet and uninvited. My father pausing under that same porch light years ago, rubbing his thumb over the envelope that held our overdue bills. He sighed, not heavily but in that defeated way that made the night air feel colder. "One day, kiddo," he murmured, "you'll understand why families break without any noise." I was starting to understand now. I leaned my hand on the counter because the room felt tilted. My aunt continued in that gentle, patronizing tone she used whenever she wanted to frame selfishness as family decisions. "It just makes more sense," she said. "You're single. You move around for work. He needs stability." I almost laughed. My uncle had changed careers more times than I could count. Bartender, then car salesman, then a short-lived attempt at real estate where he announced himself as an intuitive negotiator. My stability had kept this family afloat more than once, yet somehow I was the one who could be shifted aside. "We're announcing it at the graduation dinner," she added lightly as though that softened anything. The house, the one I had poured sweat into, the one I saved for, the one I visualized growing old in, was being rebranded into a gift for someone who never stayed long enough to appreciate the walls around him. I felt my throat tighten, not with tears but with something older. Something like clarity. "So," I asked quietly, "you expect me to smile through this?" My aunt looked surprised that I wasn't thanking her for the cruelty wrapped in silk. "Elena," she sighed, "don't be dramatic. It's only a house. Only a house. Only a decade of my life. Only every ounce of stability I clawed out of the years after my parents separated. Only the one place where I thought effort still meant something." My mother stepped forward then, her hands twisting the corner of her sweater. She had spent her life smoothing edges, hiding the real storms behind polite nods. "Maybe we can talk later," she whispered to me. "Just breathe for now." But the thing about breathing is, it gets harder when the people who are supposed to love you keep tightening invisible strings around your lungs. My uncle shifted his weight. "Look, Elena," he said, voice low, "I didn't ask for any of this. They just thought." I held up a hand. "Please don't finish that sentence." The house wasn't about him. It wasn't even about me. It was about what this family had always been. A place where responsibility flowed upward and entitlement flowed wherever it pleased. Another memory flickered. Me at 19, kneeling on that living room carpet, picking up the broken pieces of a cheap lamp after a fight that wasn't mine. My aunt stood above me, shaking her head as if I had dropped it. "You're so good at fixing things," she said. "Some people are just made to patch what others break." Maybe she expected I'd patch this too. I looked at the 3 of them, my aunt, my mother, my uncle, framed by the soft kitchen light and the distant sound of someone opening a soda can in the next room. It felt surreal how betrayal could sit so casually between spice jars and the smell of roasted potatoes. Something steadied inside me. "You know," I said, my voice almost calm, "I'd prefer you tell the whole family." "Not me." My aunt blinked. "Tell them what?" "That you're taking the house I paid off," I replied, "and gifting it to someone else." Her jaw twitched. "We're not taking anything. We're reallocating. Call it whatever helps you sleep." The moment stretched thin like a thread that would snap if anyone breathed too hard. My uncle looked down at his shoes. My mother looked at me with that soft, breaking expression she reserved for truths she didn't want to acknowledge. Outside, a car rolled slowly down the street, its tires whispering against the pavement. The sun dipped lower, sending long shadows across the floor. I didn't know everything that would unfold next. Not yet. But I felt the shift, the quiet untethering. Like stepping out of a life I'd been borrowing. And somewhere inside that stillness, I sensed the truth waiting for me, patient and steady as a locked drawer I had overlooked for too many years. The graduation dinner was 3 days away, but the tension from that kitchen moment clung to me like the faint scent of lemon cleaner on my clothes. I drove home with the windows cracked open, letting the cold evening air wash in. Streetlights passed overhead like slow, dimming stars. My hands rested on the steering wheel, steady but not relaxed. My apartment felt smaller than usual when I stepped inside, as though the walls had moved a little closer while I was gone. I set my keys on the counter and leaned against the fridge, listening to its faint hum. It reminded me of the sound my childhood home made at night, the old one before the mortgage swallowed my father's last stretch of hope. I walked to my desk, opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the folder I kept sealed away for years. Not hidden exactly, just ignored. Because opening it meant acknowledging every sacrifice I made and every promise my family had quietly rewritten for me. Inside were copies of the checks I had sent to the mortgage company, receipts from the roof contractor I eventually fired, the inspection report I fought with the city over, even the final statement, stamped "paid in full." My handwriting trailed across each page, neat in some places, shaky in others. All the evidence of a life built on quiet endurance. And tucked near the back was the envelope my father had left for me when he passed. I remembered his handwriting on it, shaky but patient. He always wrote as though he expected someone to keep his words forever. That memory drifted in again. Him under the porch light, the papers trembling slightly in his hand. "Elena," he'd said that night, "don't let anyone tell you what your worth is. People will try. Even family. Especially family." His eyes softened then. "But a house means something. It's the one place you shouldn't have to fight to exist." I touched the letter as if it could anchor me, steady me. I read it again slowly. He had written that the house was meant for me when the time came, not as a gift but as recognition of the years I spent cleaning, repairing, holding everything together while everyone else drifted in and out. The next morning I called his old attorney. A quiet man named Lorn who always seemed to dress in muted grays, like he wanted to blend into the edges of every room. He remembered me. He remembered my father. And he remembered the note my father left with him, confirming that every contribution I made toward the house's mortgage legally shifted ownership share in my direction. My father had protected me more than I realized. When Warren spoke, his voice was calm, almost gentle. "Legally," he said, "your aunt cannot gift the house without your signed consent. Your payments made you a primary financial stakeholder." He paused. "They may not know this." Of course they didn't. My father had known exactly how quiet betrayal could be in our family. He had prepared for it. A strange peace settled over me. Not triumph. Not anger. Something quieter, like the soft exhale after holding your breath for too long. The graduation dinner arrived in a haze of warm lights and too loud laughter echoing off the rented hall. The tables were decorated with cheap gold runners, and someone had propped oversized cardboard "congrats" letters near the stage, slightly crooked. My aunt spotted me first. Her smile was polite, thin as paper. My mother looked anxious, smoothing the back of her dress as if she could iron out the tension between us. My uncle lifted a hand in a half-wave, unsure whether I would wave back. I didn't. The air smelled of lukewarm pasta and over-toasted garlic bread. I found a seat off to the side, beneath a dim wall sconce. My cousin Mia approached with a small plate of appetizers, her soft curls bouncing with each step. "Everything okay?" she asked quietly, offering me a stuffed mushroom. I shook my head with a small smile. "Not tonight, Mia." She hesitated before walking away. She wasn't part of the cruelty, just caught in the orbit of people who were. Every family has one or two like her. Kind, observant, wishing things were different but unsure how to shift the weight of older generations. When the speeches began, my aunt stepped to the microphone, beaming with pride. The room hushed. "We have a special announcement," she said, glancing at my uncle before continuing. "In celebration of this milestone, we're gifting him something truly meaningful." Her voice lifted, warm and triumphant. "Our family house." The applause came quickly, instinctively, like people clapping for a performer without really listening to the words. My mother clapped slower than the rest, her eyes darting toward me with dread. I stood. Not abruptly. Not theatrically. Just quietly. The room softened to a hush. Forks paused. Conversations broke mid-sentence. I walked toward the microphone with a calmness that didn't quite feel like my own. My aunt stepped back, confusion and irritation blending across her face. When I reached the mic, I looked at my uncle. "You want to tell them?" I asked softly, "or should I?" He froze. So I continued. "The house can't be gifted," I said, voice steady but not raised. "I paid off the mortgage. Legally, I am a primary owner. My father ensured that before he died." Gasps fluttered through the room. Some shocked. Some embarrassed. Some quietly satisfied. A memory passed through me then. My father standing at the edge of the yard during sunset, wiping sweat from his brow after fixing the fence. "Stability," he said, "is built one quiet decision at a time." I hadn't realized until now how prophetic that moment was. My aunt tried to recover. "Elena, we didn't." "You did," I replied. "But you didn't have all the information." I stepped away from the microphone. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. It felt like the lightest storm had finally passed. People avoided my aunt's eyes. My mother sat down slowly, her shoulders sinking, not in shame but in relief. For once she didn't have to smooth anything over. Later that night my uncle approached me outside, beneath the buzzing glow of the parking lot lamp. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "If I had." "I know," I said. And I meant it. He wasn't innocent, but he wasn't the architect either. The next morning I changed the locks on the house. Not because I was shutting them out, but because I was finally letting myself in. In the weeks that followed, the family adjusted around the truth the way people adjust around new furniture in an old room. Hesitant at first, then gradually accepting its shape. My aunt stopped calling for a while. My mother started visiting more. Mia brought flowers one Saturday just because. As for me, I began repainting the living room. Soft sage green. The color of calm. If you've lived anything like this, tell your story, and don't forget to subscribe. Some betrayals echo. Some truths settle. And some homes finally become what they were always meant to be. Sometimes quiet courage rebuilds everything.